Hello everyone, this is Chase Pounds. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing about a 1943 Titanic film. Now, I had mentioned this before in my previous video in the review of the 1953 Titanic film. But in this video, I'm going to discuss some more information, direct information about the film, or I should say, detailed information about the film. This film was made in this film, as I said, was made in 1943. It was made overseas in Germany during the outbreak of World War II. This was more of a film, this Titanic film was more of a propaganda film, or war propaganda film, and it kind of in the film it portrays the British as being arrogant, because this film was made in a way of trying to exploit the British and making them look bad and arrogant or hubris. And it particularly portrays in the film it portrays the Captain Smith, as being as well as J. Bruce Ismay, the chairman of the White Star Line. Particularly as being kind of greedy and demanding in a way. At the same time, there's a German a fictitious German officer who's more concerned about the safety of the ship and concerned about the course and thinks they need to change the speed and heat the ice warnings, which they do not. And of course, if you're familiar with the Titanic, the ship ends up sinking, strikes the iceberg and sinks. He sinks. Of course, there's a kind of iconic scene in the film where J. Bruce Ismay is demanding to get into a lifeboat. He's screaming, yelling at the captain to get into a lifeboat. Of course, this is not how it occurred on the real Titanic, but because there's always been controversy about J. Bruce Ismay. There's always controversy about J. Bruce Ismay surviving the disaster, because at that time it was kind of considered more a form of male chivalry of letting the women be saved first and men stay back in some cases staying in their place and having to die in the disaster as a form of honor and chivalry. A code, again, is a kind of form of code of chivalry that was believed at the time. And in this case with Ismay, he got into a lifeboat where countless women and children were still left on board and died. So there was always it was always seen that he was a coward instead of being a brave man and taking consequences of his fate. So this film kind of portrays that as him being more tries to portray him as they try to use it as a way of trying to make the British, the British seem make them seem very arrogant and greedy, and arrogant and at the end of as in the end of the film, Ismay's on trial, and he's not he's not found guilty of any crime. Not for surviving the Titanic, but also he's not charged for any form of negligence, which again I guess that also again portrays the bridge. It kind of exploits the bridge again, being very arrogant and arrogant, and again is used again as weaponized as in some cases they as a form of murder that the bridge committed in letting people die in a disaster. Well, in my opinion, I think the film was, and when now as for the way the film was made, I think it was well done, very well done. Well done because the acting, and I guess as the acting, though I can't understand what the people are exactly saying because this is a German film and it has German subtitles. And the though as for historical accuracies, I say it's somewhat mostly accurate to the Titanic disaster, but but since this is a propaganda film, it doesn't really focus on the I guess the very historical aspects of of the tragic event. Though one thing I would say is that I think the interior of the ship doesn't really. You see the film, the interior of the ship, such as the ship's dining hall, and the hall doesn't really resemble the actual Titanic. And it also leaves out notable passages that are on the Titanic, such as the Strauss couple. If you're familiar with the Strauss, Isidore Ida Strauss, the wife Isidore, Ida didn't want to get into a lifeboat without her husband, so she stayed on board, and they both perished. Then of course there's another noble character is Molly Brown, also known in real life as Margaret Brown, who was an elite socialite from, like I should also say activist, who was from Bladeville, Colorado, and known for her heroism of having the women rowing the lifeboat. She's not in this film either. Then also left out the ship's designer, Thomas Andrews, which I mentioned before in the 1953 Titanic. He's also left out. He's left out in this film as well. And that's one of the historical inaccuracies. Now as for special effects, I think we're very impressive for its time, especially the interior scenes, the ships, such as the ship, well, actually even the ship itself sinking. Even though it was done with a model, I think it's nicely well done the way it shows the ship sinking. It still has a sense of realism. Then the interior shots of the ship, interior sinking scenes were also well done, especially the scene of the dining room flooding. I think it was nicely well done. That's kind of always was the significant part of the film for me as a child, seeing that scene of the dining room scene. But and I find that impressive for its time, because this was a time before computers, and also then it was an era before disaster movies weren't really prevalent, and this is even before the Pacific Picture in this '70s when disaster films weren't as prevalent yet, as I said. But again, I think so. That's why I think it's a quite I guess a feat or accomplishment they accomplishment in that in the film of the mastering the special effects. And then the yeah, back his as for I guess the back story behind the film, this was directed by I forget the name of the director, but I remember I think his last name was Selpine, and he did a lot of the film for the films during the war, or the rise of the Nazis, which I don't know any other films other than this Titanic film. And there was there was some controversy with him that kind of ran him into trouble. Was that he I think he supposedly sexually harassed women on the set while filming in production of this film. Then he also there was controversy where he clashed with the Nazi government, which kind of led to his death, and I think he was forced to hang himself. I think he said something disrespectful or ridiculed the Nazi government, and that's what I guess killed him. Or I think he went to prison and he killed himself. As for the film itself, it wasn't really it didn't really, it was it, as for the film itself, it was and never was really released because most of the theaters in Germany were bombed or closed down during with the war. And however, in some countries it was outside of Germany where the war was taking place. It was screened in a few countries. However, there was some controversy about the film being made because to some it kind of, especially the sinking scenes where it shows, some people thought that it invoked fear. It made people frightened or scared I guess with the war. But what would you expect if you make a film about the Titanic? Especially, they said it made people afraid of going on ships. But again, what would you expect if you make the film about the Titanic? It would make people get scared of going on ships. And particularly the scenes of people panicking on the passengers panicking, and particularly the director, I think, or the one of the people of the government who was involved in the project, I think the Joseph Goebbels, Joseph Goebbels, I think he was head of the media department of the Nazis. Said I don't think he liked he said he didn't like the ending because it showed people panicking and scared. Then there's a scene there's all particularly where it shows like passengers behind a what appears to be like a fence or a gate. Now I'm not sure this is based on the myth about the third class passengers on the real Titanic being supposedly being blocked off by gates that kept them that prevent them from getting gaining access to the upper decks, which is some research are done. It says that it's a myth that never occurred, but it's always still being portrayed in films, including this, and I think he was kind of portraying this film as well. But I'm not sure the scene, but it shows a fence where passengers are all behind like a big, large, long fence. The pastors are behind, and to some people, based on what I read, is that to some especially I guess for Jews, I guess if they saw the film, if they were allowed to see the film, that it represents that kind of to some reminded people of the Holocaust, of when they show the Jews in the internment camps behind the fence, right before they're about to get slaughtered. That's what to some people that scene represented. To some people, and I never really thought that until recently. It kind of resembles the Holocaust. And as I said, the film in some countries didn't have the film. As I said, wasn't really released until the 50s, and still even then, the film in some countries was banned. In certain countries was banned because I guess of the content of the film, and I guess what the film what the political message of the film centered around, which again was making center around, I guess, again about around in some, I guess, what the film symbolized, I guess, how it made the British and exploited the British being arrogant. I guess to some people it seemed too controversial to be shown. But however, I said this film by the 50s was mostly be released to the main public. I should say mass public, I think. But in this film, in the scenes of the film would be recycled into other Titanic films, such as the TV and theatrical versions of A Night to Remember, where it shows the day shots of the ship, day shots of the ship, which was actually shot on a real ship. It was, by the way, the ship was called the Capricorn, which I'll kind of explain more about that. It also shows scenes of the engine room flooding as well. And there's also the scenes were shown in the 1957 1950s television TV show Telephone Time, which tells the story of Margaret Brown. And then is even recycled into documentaries, such as a lot of documentaries that I know of, including the 1994 A&E documentary, the two-part documentary on the Titanic. Again, shows the flooding scenes of the engine room, which also shows deleted scenes of. Interesting. At the same time, it shows deleted scenes of the Titanic of the ship sinking, and also had mixture of sinking footage from the 1953 Titanic film that I mentioned previously. And there was a documentary in 2012 called Titanic that talks about the making of the film and the story behind the director. Yeah, as I said before, they mentioned that it was shot on board a real ship called the Capricorn. And I remember this documentary coming out during the 100th anniversary. I watched it on the History Channel. And the ship, I think, was carrying Jewish refugees to Capricorn when it was shot down, and passengers were, I think, clinging off the ship and falling into the water. Some were being shot in the air from the air, and there was some survivors' accounts that told their story of what happened, and they said that the disaster was even greater than the film it was depicted in it was used the film to depict. It was greater than the actual Titanic disaster. And that was a good movie, and I thought it was well done. There's another video by Chase Pounds.